Okay, let's get into a specific text. So each week we'll have a different text that we're in, and let's say you're preparing for your life group, you need to get into the text. Well, you know that we're studying the book of Jonah, and I want to focus really on chapter 4. That's that last section of the book of Jonah that you read. Okay, so let's get into the text and actually break down a verse. So when you approach a verse, don't just read the verse and make you think, what does that mean to me? But actually remember that the author is trying to communicate a message to you, and he's using language to do that. So how do we communicate messages in language? Well, we use things like verbs and subjects and objects. I know we're getting a little English class on us, but it's really important because that's how we communicate. So let's just read, for example, in Jonah chapter 4, the first verse. But it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was angry. That seems pretty simple, but there's all kinds of things going on. When I study a text, I really want to interact with it, so I get messy with a text. Now, I don't know if you use a physical Bible. I use a digital Bible. I recommend using a digital Bible because you can mark it up all you want and then erase it if you don't like it, right? Physical Bible, it's a little bit harder to do that. But I like to just mark up the text. First of all, I want to know just the basic elements of a sentence, like what was the verb in that sentence, right? Well, displeased is the first word that should jump out. Well, what's the subject of that verb? Well, it. Well, what does that mean, it? So a lot of times, biblical authors will substitute pronouns for regular verbs. So a lot of times I like to make notes on the text about what that pronoun means. So it in this context means what just happened in the text. And what just happened in the text, do you remember? God decided to forgive Nineveh for their wrongdoings and relent on punishing them. So that's the it that displeased Jonah. So I'll just make a note here of saying, God forgiving Nineveh. Okay, and it reminds me that that's the thing that displeased Jonah. Now, what's the object there? You got Jonah as the object, so I'll underline Jonah just to help me remember what happened. And then you'll see this other word, exceedingly. Now notice up here right on the right hand corner of that term, do you see that one there? Do you pay attention to the footnotes on your Bible and the little notes in there? Because they're actually really important. Not just the notes that connect to other verses, but the notes that tell you something about that verse. Now if you go down here at the bottom of the page, it'll tell you that number 1 means in the original language Hebrew, exceedingly displeased actually is more accurately interpreted. It was exceedingly evil to Jonah. So I'm actually going to make a note up here that really the idea here is Jonah saw evil in God relenting on the Ninevites. It was evil to Jonah. And that's really important because remember what I said, pay attention to words that remind you of other things. What does evil remind you of? It should remind you of Genesis chapter 1, 2, and 3, where God defined good and evil. There was a tree of good and evil. God said it is not good for man to be alone. Well, it's the same word evil as the term good and evil with the tree of good and evil. And the author wants you to think, here's Jonah choosing good versus evil. He's labeling something God has done as evil. Okay? Now, there's this other part of the verse here where we've got another verb, was, and another subject, he. Now, who is he here? It's Jonah, so I make a little note that this is Jonah. And it was angry, okay? He was angry. So it's not only that he saw it was evil, he saw it was angry, or it made him angry. Now, after I break down a verse like that, and I can keep going, the other thing I want to do here is just kind of want to say, okay, what did the author say in that in my own words so that I kind of understand what he's saying? Really, it displeased Jonah and he was angry. So I'm just going to say God forgiving Nineveh, Jonah saw as evil. And he was pissed. He was really angry here. See, I write it in my own terms so that I understand what's going on. And now I go to the next verse and I break down the next verse and I summarize the next verse. And what I'm looking for is repeated words, subject, objects, and verbs. I'm looking for conjunctions. Did you see that? In this text, there's a conjunction right at the beginning, but, right? Conjunctions are the most important terms in the Bible because they always change things or transition. And here God did a great work, but Jonah, and it's going to transition to the opposite of good. This is something not good happening. Okay, so always look for conjunctions as well. I'll give you an example here of what I'm talking about. I've actually got Jonah 4 completely marked up, and you can see I've got text everywhere. I got words highlighted in common, like do you do well to be angry? Look down here. Do you do well to be angry? It's the same words, right? I highlighted same words, God appointed. I highlighted things that were interesting. I made notes all over there, and then I summarized each verse on the left-hand side. Okay? In verse 1, I have what I said. Jonah thought God forgiving Nineveh was evil. Look at 4:2, my summary. Jonah explains anger. I don't like that you're a gracious and compassionate God to other people. Verse 3, I think I should die because you showed grace and compassion on Nineveh. That's basically what Jonah says. And then verse 4, another pivot point, God asking a really key question. Is it right that you're angry? Which, of course, the answer is going to be no. So you can see I flow through this and I divide it up. I write the verses kind of in language that I understand. I try to break things down. In the next lesson, what we're actually going to do is take these little sections that I'm breaking down and build them into bigger ideas to help me understand what's the overall message here. Okay, see you soon.